Welcome back. It is the election season and all sorts of promises are being made by our political leaders. Congress President Rahul Gandhi set the cat among pigeons when he jumped BJP's gun and went ahead with his poll promise of basic income for one and all. Just 4 days before the budget, the Congress is promising that if they are voted to power, they will have a formula to rid India of poverty. How much of this is election optics and how much is feasible? Here's a quick look at what all the hue and cry is about.
Universal Basic Income, or UBI, is from a school of economic thought that supports the government paying out a fixed subsistence income to each and every citizen of a country. There are variations to the scheme where certain criteria is used to qualify recipients. And there have been experiments with UBI in different parts of the world, but not yet in India.
हिंदुस्तान के हर गरीब व्यक्ति के बैंक अकाउंट में कम से कम न्यूनतम आमदनी हिंदुस्तान की सरकार देने जा रही है। मतलब हिंदुस्तान में ना कोई भूखा रहेगा, ना कोई गरीब रहेगा। और ये हम छत्तीसगढ़ में करेंगे, मध्य प्रदेश, राजस्थान, हर प्रदेश में करेंगे। हम दो हिंदुस्तान नहीं चाहते हैं, एक हिंदुस्तान होगा। और ये काम आज तक दुनिया की किसी सरकार ने नहीं किया है।
Ahead of Budget 2019, the rhetoric of universal basic income has picked up pace in India. And instead of the Modi government making the announcement, it turned out to be the Congress which has put its plans out. The Congress chief declared that if voted to power, the party will provide minimum basic income to every poor Indian. The initial idea of the UBI scheme was mooted in the economic survey of 2016-17. According to it, the government would provide 650 rupees per month to a probable 70% of the country's population. According to the economic survey of 2016-17, the estimate was that this would cost the government 4 to 5% of the GDP. The difference in Rahul Gandhi's proposal compared to that of the Modi government's economic survey is in its scope and ambit.
This is not a universal basic income scheme. That scheme will give the same amount of money to everyone in this country, including you and me. That's not the idea. The idea is to target the poorest, 15% or 18% or 20%. Whoever are the poorest will be targeted.
Critics say that this is similar to the schemes that have failed in the past.
Manrega was again an idea like that. It worked. It can be perfected always. The thing is that you should implement it, then perfect it over a period of time.
Two states in India, Sikkim and Telangana, have already started work on frameworks similar to universal basic income. Telangana became the first Indian state to provide unconditional cash transfers to farmers under its Raitu Bandhu scheme. And Sikkim has proposed to introduce UBI for all its residents. As the Congress has already opened up on its plans of implementing universal basic income, the ball is now in the Modi government's court to woo the voters ahead of the general elections.
And what about the ruling party? From promising 2 crore jobs per annum to having possibly failed also on that front at some level, from a tall claim to employ youth of nation through effective job creation, to also selling pakodas if required and create self-employment. Narendra Modi government has changed goalposts often, but also now the question is, have enough jobs not been created as was promised in 2014? That remains the core issue and perhaps also one of the most debated ones in the last 4 years. Here's a report card of Modi government.
5 years ago, Narendra Modi promised India 2 crore jobs per annum. 4 years later, and close to the heels of the end of his tenure, the reality remains starkly different. In December 2018, the CMI data revealed 3 crore unemployed youth looking for a job. 29.6 lakh government vacancies remain unfilled, and 69.39 lakh Indian youth have registered in employment exchange. India today needs a stellar growth rate of 9% and above, along with serious reforms in land and labour policies to fulfill the promises made by Narendra Modi in the year 2014. The India Today Mood of the Nation survey reveals unemployment as a big area of concern amongst voters in India. Lack of jobs stands out as the single biggest failure of the Narendra Modi government. According to our Mood of the Nation survey, 1 out of every 3 Indian considers this as a big failure.
Clearly, the pace of growth is not creating jobs. That's part of the distress because, some people in agriculture say what we need is to get out of agriculture. And how do we get people out of agriculture into the workforce in a serious way? That's a matter of creating good jobs. How do we create them?
One of the things we have to do is job creation. I don't think we've been very successful at creating jobs, even at the 7.5% growth rate that we have.
You have many brilliant young people coming to the markets and they need to find jobs. So creation of activity and economic value that delivers in terms of jobs is critical.
The Modi government will have no choice but to correct the course in the interim budget. Bureau Report, India Today.
Many young people now have access to higher education, but does higher education guarantee jobs anymore? Educated unemployed youth are growing in numbers, and this time my colleague Indrajit Kundu from Kolkata decided to bring you this story of a youth who struggles to find a job that fits him, and on the other hand, another is disappointed even with proper remuneration for academics and qualified future teachers not really reaching out to the youth. Take a look at this report.
The job situation in the country today is quite gloomy, and in that backdrop, the story of 24-year-old Shubham Dey, a student from West Bengal, possibly replicates the stories of many youngsters across this country. Shubham has to support a family of 6 members, at the same time pursue his master's degree here in West Bengal.
जितने भी नौकरियां मिल रहा है मुझे अभी तक वो सब सिक्योरिटी एजेंसी से या फिर कोई डिलीवरी बॉय का, तो उसमें से आपको कम से कम 6 से 7 हज़ार तक मिलता है और उसके बाद कुछ नहीं. अब 7 हज़ार सैलरी में आज के दिन में क्या हो जाता है? कुछ ट्यूशन्स प्रोवाइड करता हूँ जो कि मैं घर घर जाके पढ़ाता हूँ.
Shubham's case clearly shows that contrary to the popular belief, having a master's degree is no guarantee to getting a decent job. In a globalized job market, specialization is what matters. But despite having such specialization, there are several youngsters who are still looking out for jobs and finding it difficult to secure one.
I'm Ritushri Sengupta, and I'm working as a PhD scholar in the Department of English, Vishwabharati, which is in Shantiniketan, as we all know. And I have been a part of this turmoil, joblessness that is prevailing in Kolkata right now. I was working in Bangalore in Reva University. The jobs which Kolkata had for me right at that year, they actually paid peanuts. Where are our jobs? Why aren't you taking more scholars? Why aren't you increasing our scholarship amount? 8,000 is the net fellowship and 32,000 for the JRF.
As the Modi government prepares to table its final budget, there is bad news for the economy. According to a latest survey by the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, more than 1 crore Indians have lost their job in 2018, even as unemployment rate stands at an all-time high. Clearly, for those entering the job market now in India, these are rough times coming ahead. With camera person Probir Biswas, Indrajit for India Today in Kolkata.
Despite education difficult to find a job, eventually the budget and the economy boils down to the livelihood of people. So beyond the jargons and politics, it is a job that creates a country and then is reflected in its robust or failing economic health. So while the government since the time of swearing in has promoted startups and many have even pulled it off, the question is, has it created enough employment? Here's a ground report check by my colleague Lokpriya from Chennai.
38-year-old Shankar quit his high-paying job in a leading IT company to co-found Spinny in 2015, which is a sales referral company that took the MSME segment by storm.
We started up when I was in Singapore. I saw a big difference when I moved from Singapore to here to start operations in India. Some of the significant challenges are the time consumed to work on compliance, to work towards meeting certain requirements to run business. These are little or slightly more of a hurdle yet in India. We are improving, but I think there's still a long way to go.
Due to sluggish economy, Shankar had to downsize his team by 20%. Demonetization and GST further forced him to be strict on cash policies.
So few people knew it, few people had to learn it by going through the problem. So these are the changes which were required, but it could have been well planned. People would have got even more trained if the time was given, if there was enough time to deploy these processes.
Despite the shortcomings, Shankar is hopeful of a positive trajectory. He believes that India's vast marketplace will revive the trend for startup culture in 2019. In Chennai, with video journalist Daniel, Lokpriya, India Today.
Taking over from the promise of startup, the current government also has been encouraging youth to be job creators and not seekers, also asking youth to return home and help build this country. But is the ground reality as has been promised? Take a look at this report by Nolan Pinto from Bengaluru.
So I quit my job to go into business, and life has been pretty much a roller coaster after that. It's been about 5 years since I left my job, and we've been tax compliant from day one in the business. But contrary to popular opinion and the whole public view of business being so glamorous, the learnings I've had on the job, on my own business, has been vastly different from the projected reality outside.
Now, Priya Jain, as an entrepreneur, is finding it difficult to provide employment because of the taxes that she needs to pay along with GST. Now, in another case, this is the story of a man who has actually studied abroad. He's come back to India. He's finding it difficult to get a job because, well, it's not easy for everyone to become an entrepreneur.
Because aviation itself has its own course. So I believe they should remove the science background and use commerce also as an option. I come from a commerce background, and getting my license converted is one of the big issues. First I have to get my science and then get my license converted. And moreover, the rules and regulations about you have to have so many hours in the night and so many hours of instrument. I've had 1,300 hours, but I still don't comply with the Indian requirements. And unfortunately, after paying 30 lakhs and getting my course done, I still have to pay another 10 lakhs to get my requirement up to mark. And as I come back, I'm struggling to get a job because of the science background. And they should change the rules.
So according to the people we have spoken to, overall job growth requires hassle-free policies and skill-oriented job openings for things to change. And hopefully the central and the state budgets will look into these issues. With video journalist Madhuwar, Nolan Pinto for India Today.
And finally, a concluding ground report. What about the entrepreneurs who have braved to venture out on their own? Instead of creating jobs, they are now lamenting the layoffs to sustain their job. Here's a report by Akshay Nath.
In 2013, 24-year-old Surendranath Reddy, who was into robotics, saw opportunity in 3D printing technology. And very soon, he had many customers coming in asking for the latest technology.
So that's when we bought a 3D printer for internal usage, and then we started making parts, for our own robots with a 3D printer in-house. And as we, went forward, so I was well connected with the electronics and, hobbyist community in Chennai. So all these people started coming to me asking for making parts for their own projects, and that's when we realized that there's a good demand for 3D printing. So, as a side project, I started 3Ding as a, separate business, more like a subsidiary.
The flourishing business saw customers like Nissan, Fevicol, Renault, and even art directors from the film fraternity approaching Reddy's 3Ding.
There was a steady growth, until before this demonetization happened, and probably during that phase, people realized that it was only the hard cash that was affected, but since that was affected, people failed to purchase items, and then in the overall industry, services costs went up. Since sales were not happening, we did have to do layoffs. Okay, probably at least 50-60% of our staff had to be laid off over the next few months. And when we were recovering again, there was the GST implementation that came in. There was another wave of, a period of time where there was very negligible amounts of sales.
From 7,000 startups in 2008 to over 49,000 startups in 2018, the startup ecosystem is seeing an exponential growth, states a report titled The State of Indian Startup Ecosystem 2018. Though Reddy had to shelf most of his projects, the growing startup ecosystem gives him hope for a better tomorrow and a scope for revival. With camera person Daniel from Chennai, this is Akshar Nag for India Today.
Well, those are ground reports, but also watch our special coverage on Budget 2019 Voternomics at 8 p.m. with Rajdeep Sardesai.
Thanks for watching the video. For more such news and updates, please like, share and subscribe to India Today. Also check out our other great videos from our channel. We know you would love to.